Hi, I'm Ciaran Deely from Sport Horizon, and you're very welcome back to our next episode in the Sport Horizon webinar series. I'm delighted today to have a really top practitioner. We said we wanted to bring on the best of the best around the world, so I'm happy to welcome Chris Brandner today. And Chris is an S&C coach from New South Wales Institute of Sport. Chris, thank you for coming on. Took a little bit of time for us to organize this with our busy schedules at the different sides of the world, but we're delighted to have you on, and thanks very much.
No problems at all. Thanks for having me. Yeah, a little bit difficult with time zones and kids and studies and that kind of thing, but we're here now. So yeah, thanks for having me along.
Great stuff. Okay. All right. Just I want to, before I go into a little bit about Chris's profile, which is really interesting, the topic that we're touching on today is the effective use of data in S&C. It's a really, really interesting topic. Before we jump into that, I just want to say, remember to head over to our website, sporthorizon.co.uk. You'll find lots of CPD courses there, online courses for both Power BI and Tableau, and soon to be launched into other solutions such as Excel, obviously, and R and Python and everything like that. And also, if you're interested in one-to-one coaching or club consultancy service, you can check all the services out there. So the website is sporthorizon.co.uk, and our contact details are info@sporthorizon.co.uk. Okay, so Chris, it is quite an interesting profile. You work as an S&C coach in New South Wales Institute of Sport within the winter sports and cycling program as an S&C coach. Specifically, your current S&C roster includes cycling, which is track, sprint, endurance, BMX, which is quite interesting as well. Nice mix there. And also the winter sports, so that's snowboard, cross, park and pipe. You'll have to tell me about some of those things. I don't have experience of them very much growing up in Ireland. And also with both Olympic and Paralympic athletes as well. And then previously, you worked overseas in the Middle East in Aspire Academy, the very famous Aspire Academy in Doha, Qatar. And that was in the middle talent identification and S&C departments there. And I believe that you met with Johannes during that period as well, which has had a follow-on impact into Sport Horizon courses and service. And I'll let you touch on that. And then not only that, but on top of that, you completed a PhD in Deakin University in Melbourne, Australia, where you were investigating the acute responses and chronic adaptations to resistance training and with and without blood flow restriction. So you've presented research internationally and published in some of the top ranked academic journals across a range of S&C and sports science disciplines. So you've had a huge range of experiences and knowledge and qualifications. I know how hard it is to get through the PhD process, obviously, but you've dipped into different sports and in different countries, and you've had a really, really diverse and interesting career so far.
Yeah, and just as an update to that as well, I've recently moved in as of a new contract cycle, which generally happens after an Olympic Games, into our track and field program.
Oh,
So a little bit less with cycling and winter sports now, but exciting to take on some of Australia's best sprinters and jumpers, as well as our walks group and some endurance athletes as well. So just to add to the repertoire of sports for sure. Yeah. But yeah, prior to that, overseas in Qatar for 8 years, which was a wonderful experience for myself and my family. Had a young family over there at the back end of my time, so that was great. And you're right, that's where I first came across Johannes, and not only him, but also our data department, who was well into Power BI and reporting, and not only that, but a bit more high level analytic skills and data usage using things like R and Python. So that's where it sort of all started for me. And I'm happy to continue that now, some of my skills, and bringing that to NSWIS, and which is why I'm on this YouTube channel with you, so we can go through some of the reports that I've been happy to put together. I'm really into visualization of data. But, I took an arts course, through my high school degree there. So I like art, and the visualization certainly suit that side of me. So yeah, that's why we're here now.
And I think we have you to thank for our Power BI for S&C Coaches Level 1 course, whereby we had a sports science course, but you entered in from the side and said, okay, well, what about the S&C guys?
Oh yeah. What about me? Kind of thing. I just, me and Johannes, we crossed paths at Aspire. He was in the football department, of course, because of the leading into the Qatar 2022 World Cup. I was in the Olympic sport, so we didn't have to do anything, day to day together per se. But we had met, and he'd eventually moved on after a couple of years, and then Sport Horizon was created with yourself, and I saw this level 1 course for sports scientists, and I said, hang on a minute, like we S&Cs need these skills as well. And I just reached out to Johannes after a few years of not, and I said, do you think it would be possible to put together a course for S&Cs as well? And just gave a few ideas of some of the technology and data that we look at, which included and is in the course, exercise programming and jumps monitoring and things like that. And there you go. He struck an idea for him, and he's gone out and with your help as well, created a course for S&C coaches, which is awesome.
Yeah, that's brilliant. You only need now the level 2 to be rolled out as well. And but no, I guess our sports science courses are very much looking at the training load, external load, GPS metrics and variables. So it's nice to actually get the gym loading, the individual athlete, the fitness testing, the jumps monitoring, and yeah, it's quite a nice comprehensive course. Okay,
That's
so
right. But sorry, just to jump in as well, the skills are applicable across both courses, right? So whether you're an S&C and doing the sports science course, like the skills are still there. So the course was still really good. But yeah, to see the same skills used in Power BI across, instead of in a GPS scenario, in a counter movement jump performance, it's like, yeah, but it's all the same skills across both. And that's what the courses are really good for as well.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, so the topic that we're going to have a discussion about, and you're going to show us some of the reports that you've made across different sports and for different stakeholders, is the effective use of data in S&C coaching. And originally we were talking about the utilization of data, and we thought, okay, well, actually, there are a lot of people who are using data and gathering data, but it's not always effective and efficient use of that. So we kind of slightly altered the topic, I think, which is interesting in itself. But just to start off with a question then, and a very open-ended question of how do you feel S&C coaches in general use their data in the applied world?
That's a good question, and I'm sure it's different in the many different scenarios that are out there in terms of resources, funding, time as well, right? But anything that we collect, should be time efficient, and that's probably the biggest thing that really breaks down, because we're all build this great skill set in coaching on a gym floor, and we might use technology for that as well, whether it's a velocity-based training device like GymAware, or you're doing online programming. We use Bridge. Team Builder is another one. You've got, veiled products or Hawken Dynamics, force plates, and we collect all of this data within our training, whether it's for training specific or monitoring across time. And that's all great, and it can happen on the gym floor. And you might look at some numbers that are happening that come up on your iPad or your screen at the time, but that's where I feel personally where things stop. So we've actually got a national in Australia. We've got a national S&C technology committee, which I'm on. And the purpose of me joining that committee was the fact that there's a stopgap here and efficiency, that we're really good at collecting this data and numbers, and our coaching is all great. But then these numbers go up somewhere into the cloud. And across Australia, we've got an athlete management system that we use, and they get stored somewhere. But then the ability to grab that stored information and put it into a reporting type structure easily to then report to athletes and coaches, that part I feel personally isn't done very well. So that's one of the purposes I wanted to be on the committee, and what I see the power in Power BI. Certainly in dealing with coaches and athletes, to be able to just open up your laptop and show a Power BI report of some data that you've been collecting with them across time can send some powerful messages pretty quickly. So huge advantage there. And that's where I see that the fallout in Australia and S&C, or could be global as well. I'm not sure. I don't know how far reaching it is, but people don't have data teams. So S&Cs need to start to develop these skills and do it themselves.
Yeah, you're starting to see it now. I mean, I'm based in London, England, and amongst the Premier League clubs, you see more and more jobs being advertised now for data analysts, data scientists, proficiency in Power BI, Tableau, or SQL exposure, all of this. So they're starting to build out those data departments, but like you're talking about at the very, very, very high end, and it's only happening now. And obviously, there's so many other clubs underneath that don't have that. And I'm wondering, are there still a lot of S&C coaches working through Excel, which is great. We use it every day, but that they have yet to kind of migrate on to Power BI, and perhaps they don't know all of the benefits of Power BI, and that they just think of Power BI as a visualization tool, for instance.
For sure. I think, I mean, even at work, people, of course, we still use Excel. There's no getting away from that. And Excel is a really powerful tool. But the visualization side of things and reporting side of things, I think that's where Power BI really ups the ante versus something like Excel. I still think you can do some really cool analytical stuff in Excel too, before you even get to the Power BI stage. And I've got a colleague at work who's recently joined who would tell me, let's not even stop at Power BI and, let's go to the next level. And Chris, you need to sign up and start some R programming as well. So it's certainly the skill set that S&Cs are venturing into and having to do. And perhaps the younger group of S&Cs coming through, they'll be doing that stuff automatically within their jobs in a few years. I think one of the other stopgaps is, when I think of US sports, they've got huge data analytic teams. So that type of work is already done for some of those high performance, NBA, NFL type clubs. Whereas, in Australia or UK, Europe, we don't have those members. So the S&C or a sports scientist has to develop those skills to then report on. But I think another sort of limitation with that is, if you do have members of your data team and you're relying on them to create reports or visualizations, they need to really understand your data. And they need to be able to clean it properly, and they need to be able to visualize it in a way that, makes sense to you, but also your messaging for the coach. That also takes time too. So if you have the skills to do that already, then you've also stopped another sort of time efficient, or you've improved your time efficiency again, if you've got that ability.
Yeah, that data communication and dissemination is such an interesting topic, because you can have all the really good technical skills of cleaning the data and gathering it and reporting it, analyzing it, visualizing it. But then if you don't communicate that efficiently to the coach and the players and the stakeholders, then it's not worth as much. And maybe we might come back to a couple of those questions after the demonstration, just about how you communicate your data and your insights to the other S&C coaches, the players, or the athletes in your case that you're dealing with. Okay, so let's jump in and explore Power BI a little bit in S&C. So I think if you can demonstrate some of the reports that you've used before and you've communicated with your relevant stakeholders, I think it's a really interesting way of people seeing what you've done. And of course, we all love looking at the different reports that people have made in professional clubs and in professional sports. So I'm just going to hand it over to you to take a look at some of the reports you've completed previously.
Okay, so what we've got opened up here is a report from my time in winter sports. I was working with winter sport athletes for the last 2.5 years. Some developing athletes, some athletes who have gone on to join the Olympic team, which is really exciting. And there was all of our data was stored centrally, just on a single Excel file, which is pretty handy actually when it comes to reporting and not having to link different data streams from different places. And our reports that we would provide to athletes and coaches at the back end of every testing block that we would do, which was generally quarterly, was in a table format, on Excel, which is completely fine because the numerical values are there. You can see changes in absolute performance metrics, but I just wanted to bring something new to the team, new for the athletes, something that was visually striking to them. And to be honest, being winter sport, I like this blue theme. It picked it up off Johannes and some of the stuff at Sport Horizon. So I still think the white backgrounds are still very nice, but in this regard for winter sport, this one works really well. So anyway, I've tried to anonymize as best as I can some of the data sets that I'll show today, but this is a particular individual. You can see at the top left, you can select a number of different sports. And the group that I worked most closely with was our snowboard cross athletes. Essentially, think about 4 athletes at the top of a hill and have to work down a course, and the fastest one over the line wins. So that's generally snowboard cross. The athletes that can be selected are linked directly to the sporting discipline, and yeah, as I said, these are all anonymized. Then their name will populate at the top. And if you're a coach looking at this report, all you have to do is sort of scan your eyes over the top part of this report, because there's most recent body weight, most recent isometric mid-thigh pull, counter movement jump, bench pull, and all the testing data that we look at there. In the blue sort of bubbles that I've got here, it's their best ever result. So again, I only have to look at a snapshot at the top to see that, well, this individual's most recent mid-thigh pull max strength measure is her personal best of all time. Her most recent counter movement jump that we completed was her best ever, and so on and so forth. So it just provides a really quick snapshot for the coach or the athlete to look at. I could change the time duration that we want to look at. I think I've got it set to 2 years because that's how long I've been working with this individual. But just really quickly, can look at the last 12 months, or I can change years to months to weeks, etc. I think that's pretty handy to have, but I'll change it back to 2 years. And essentially what we're looking at here is some longitudinal monitoring in physical performance metrics for an individual athlete. And I think it's really important to have clear labeling of metrics and what we're looking at in this particular test. So I don't like big, bold headers. I think it takes away too much from some of the graphical and data that's coming out here. But this first one on the left is relative mid-thigh pull force. So you can see changes across time. It's a pretty nice individual to look at across all of the longitudinal monitoring. So you can see across the 2 years, really nice increase in maximal lower body strength. Pretty nice increase in lower body power from a counter movement jump test. This one here is a 30-second anaerobic bike sprint. We've got estimated VO2 max. We've got chin-ups on the right-hand side here, and this one in the middle is a velocity base. But essentially, this just provides me a really quick snapshot of performance across time for my athletes, and this is the type of report I would report on for an athlete at the back end of a training cycle. So generally we test, end of a season, start of the new season, end of the domestic season, and then once more prior to they go away. And essentially we want to see their peaks happening at this point here, prior to them going away. And that's where this individual achieved, best results in mid-thigh pull, counter movement jump. Mean velocities a little bit off the charts here, but also chin-ups is up too. So in general, some pretty good results across the training period.
I really like, Chris, the way there you add the context. So you have the individual data points on specific moments of the season or stages of the season, as you mentioned. But then at the top, where the coach will most likely, as you say, just look at the most recent score for that athlete. But also I love the bubble of, and in slightly different color as well, of the historical maximum, because I think those are probably the two most important things for a coach. They want to see where that athlete is most recently, and then they want to compare it to, okay, what's their actual maximum. So it's, really nice visualization and good use of the colors and everything.
Thank you very much. I stole that little feature with the little bubble there from Jack in my time at Aspire when he created something for me. So if he's listening to this, shout out to Jack. Thank you, mate.
Nice.
So after showing that last dashboard to the head of Snow Sports Australia, Janina Strauss, she said that she'd love to spend a little bit more time, working with data and reporting like this, and she'd always thought it'd be a really cool idea to put together like a leaderboard. It creates, motivation within a group. You can compare against different athletes, different disciplines. So that's where this dashboard comes in. Essentially what we're looking at here, and I might just sort of toggle this. This is a date marker. So I'm going to look at any data point that's in the system across time. So the data all the way from 2017, I could toggle for males and females, and I can go across the top here and select the particular discipline. But if I wanted to make comparisons for any snowboard cross athlete across all time here, that's what's currently selected in males. And it's a very similar layout to the previous individual slide where I've got the mid-thigh pull here, counter movement jump power in the middle, anaerobic sprint on a bike here, estimated VO2 max, maximum chins, and this is a NordBoard metric. I like this because, as I said, I can now look at this and select this athlete at the top, someone that I've worked with. Where does he sit on maximum strength? He's ranked first of all time, which is awesome. 87 newtons kilo in an isometric mid-thigh pull, so really strong individual. He's got a counter movement jump relative power of 60 watts per kilo, which is actually really good and passes our benchmarks for performance for Olympic level athletes. But sits probably, 10th or 12th on the all-time list. Middle of the road for anaerobic power on the bike over here. Really good numbers for chin-ups, 22 max chins, which is quite impressive. Estimated VO2 max is fourth best of all time and third best NordBoard data. So I just really like the ability to also click and highlight athletes to see where they pop up. And I can do that for female athletes as well. And interestingly, and if I just change the sports here to off my moguls group now, there was a young girl who's joined the World Cup team recently in moguls, and is on the World Cup circuit this season. And if I highlight some of her data, she's only 20 years old, first season World Cup, but just look at her rankings from all times in all of her physical performance metrics. I think it was pretty impressive, and I didn't know that she was so impressive physically in all of these markers until this dashboard was put together. I don't think with the data set that we had from the reports that we had put together in Excel that this would be highlighted. So this was a big one for me, the importance of visualization as well.
That's really cool, Chris. And I think that's the benefit of these dashboards ultimately, isn't it? Because you're gathering previously lots of coaches, and maybe at the moment as well, our S&C coaches are gathering all this data and they're sending out reports in pre-season, end of pre-season, mid-season, end of season, and they're not always joining the dots, and they're not all seeing where that specific athlete is within the team across multiple stages of the season, multiple years as well. So like this really crystallizes for me the benefit of being able to both analyze and report and visualize this data so that you, and I'm sure the athlete herself and the coaches can just see straight away where they are. It's yeah, really, really important.
It really helps add to the story of some of the numbers that are just stored somewhere, for sure. So this one is very similar to the previous dashboard, except at this point here, we're just looking at gender differences across multiple different events. So I've got the females selected, any athlete from all time in the data set that we've got, and a team's average plus standard deviation now ranking. So at this point here, from the mid-thigh pull test that we do, the moguls group of female athletes that have tested at all time are the highest rank, followed by some snowboard half-pipe athletes, some snowboard cross athletes. And again, I think if you're trying to work with a new sport or figure out what's important for a new sport in terms of physical development, having a dashboard like this to provide some numbers for you and some visualization to say, hang on a minute, your score is X, and we know you need to be at Y because that's the average for your particular discipline or sport. Then I think, again, that just helps you build a story as an S&C as to what physical abilities you need to attack or those that might not be as important either. So the squad comparison for females and males, which tell a very similar story. I think is a good one to provide to coaches, but also as an S&C department to figure out, well, what are the physical capacities that really matter for each event, and which ones do we rank well in, and which ones do we rank poorly in, and which one matter for our sport. So the squad comparison has also been pretty useful in our discussions for physical development for our athlete groups.
Yeah, and I think that ability to tell a story, and you mentioned that to me off air before we recorded, is so important, and that additional context. And it's like you go into the meeting with your coaches or athletes, and this data is a starting point, isn't it? A starting point of a conversation. It's never what you use to make final decisions on stuff. It's really to kind of start that conversation and add that context and create a story.
When I was speaking with the coach and trying to figure out the direction that we were going to travel with a particular discipline, a winter sport discipline, with the year just gone actually, I was able to show him one of these reports, and it could have been this one, a squad comparison, or possibly highlighting individuals within one of these disciplines of our development team athletes ranked against the Olympic level athletes across all the metrics that I've just been talking about now, like maximal strength, maximal power, anaerobic power, aerobic capacity, etc. And I was actually able to do a side-by-side comparison of our athlete groups and say, hang on, our development athletes are just as strong, just as powerful, just as fit as our Olympic level athletes. And yet, so the question is, well, how do we get these athletes up into the Olympic program? Well, that's the main one really as a development group. And so it's not like we didn't spend less time during the domestic season on physical training. It was still important, but that just highlighted the fact that our athletes could spend a lot more time on snow, developing snow-specific skills, because that's probably what they're lacking. That's not allowing them to reach the Olympic Winter Australia team. So again, creating one of these comparison type dashboards between squads or individuals allowed me to provide information to the coach to direct our training throughout the domestic season.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. Being able to look across the squads is fascinating, especially for the development squad athletes, as you say. I think we leave that up there because I've a couple of questions to follow on, but it's nice to actually see the dashboard that you created, and it's linked to that, because straight away I'm looking as a person who's learning Power BI, for instance, or who's looking to upskill, and I can see you've got like body mass, you've got bike power, you've counter movement jump, you've mid-thigh pull, peak forces, and everything. So you've got data from multiple different data sources, and I'm sure people working in field sports will have their GPS data, their wellness, their fitness testing. Like, how difficult is that to bring all that data together in Power BI? And I guess what's the data flow journey for you?
In this instance, it's really simple, which is not the answer you want to hear, because all of the data sits within the one Excel spreadsheet. So we might do a counter movement jump on a set of force plates, but we input the best results from a jump height or power into a spreadsheet. When someone does their max chins, that's input into the exact same spreadsheet. So if I pull over and start to look at our model view, there's not that many variables or tables that need to be connected to talk to one another. In the case where I've got, for example, in my context, we work with Veiled products and the ForceDeck system. We work with GymAware to use their velocity-based training system. In this instance, it's Team Builder that's linked into these reports here. So in general, what would happen if I had a much larger use of technology that I was reading in, that this data model, a star schema or a snowflake schema, is what could be built into it if we start to add particular metrics to speed up our data flow reports. This would look much bigger and fancier. So I don't actually have a good example off the back of this report here, but I might in others. But essentially, on a day-to-day in my job, I've got an online programming software that we work out of that reads into our athlete management system. We've got GymAware data, force decks, force frame, probably a few other bits of technology that haven't come to me right now, but that all then goes up into the cloud, into our athlete management system. I then have to log into that athlete management system and download reports as CSV files into a local folder. And I essentially will, first of all, I downloaded a historical report to get all data across all time. And now every week I tend to sort of just update with a new CSV file and put it within a particular folder. So I've got them labeled as GymAware, Force Decks, Force Frame, etc. And I just keep dumping in those new CSV files. And that's all that I do at that moment there.
Yeah.
Once I start a new dashboard and linking to a source, my source is linked to the folders. So any new data set that comes in, I refresh Power BI and the new data will come up quite quickly. The data is cleaned in Power BI. And as I said at the start of this meeting, I'm much more the visual person. I almost want to get straight into the visualization stuff. So to be honest, when I open up some of my metrics, I've still got all of those, hundreds or thousands of metrics from our Force Decks and GymAware, and they all just sit there silently, not doing much. But I've gotten much better in time because I don't want to have to sift through my data sets of actually cleaning that data prior to doing any type of visualization. So after the data is then cleaned, you can start building out your reports. And that's what I enjoy most, is the actual report building. And then it's just, you need to be able to select the right metric or the right associated metric. And probably a good example there is that, and I'll show it in another Power BI report that I've got. But if I want to look at change in strength across time, I might not do a lot of 1RM testing, but I can use a 1RM Epley formula, for example. But I don't want that formula to come, or that 1RM estimate to come from a set of 10 or 12. So again, if your data people might not know that level of information, and therefore you've got, an estimated 1RM from a back squat of, 200 kilos, and you're like, well, there's no way that could be true for my athlete. But it's so skewed because they've just done a high rep set. And so, having known your own data and cleaning your own data source, any rep included under 5, give me an estimate from that. So it's just, and I've downloaded a lot of reports from our AMS and thinking, well, where is this actual metric that I want to look at? How do I clean this? And then renaming things, and other people probably, aren't doing that stuff yet either. That cleaning of your data set. So that's a really important part of the process before you get to the visualization, which is the stuff I love doing.
Yeah, that sports specific knowledge and technical knowledge of that is so important when it comes to you analyzing the data and cleaning it, and then of course visualizing it at the end. It's a multi-step process, isn't it, all the way through? And having knowledge and experience in all of that is the optimal. Okay, the second last thing I wanted to ask you before just some ideas about people getting into that journey of the Power BI, of learning Power BI in sport and in S&C, is just around that data communication and dissemination. So I'm interested if you just pop back, to any of the reports that you wanted. Like, will you show the same report to the athlete and the coach and the multidisciplinary team, whether that's S&C, sports scientist, medical team, or will you have different reports, or will you kind of focus on, like in that first report where you mentioned about the coaches will focus on that top banner across the top, that they'll really focus on that, and that's the one that you'll speak about. Yeah, so the most recent, and obviously the historical. So I'm just interested in, for you personally, what do you do? And I know it will change in different sports and teams and clubs and everything.
I think because I'm the person putting these reports together, a lot of the reports and the tabs that you can see across the bottom, a lot of the time originally they're done for me, because I want to know something, or I want to look at the data in a particular way, for example. But in this context, this is an individual report that goes to the athlete only, plus the coach. So I would send the absolute data in a table to the athlete, because that's what they're used to seeing, and this was something new for them. So I also send the visualization with then commentary around, these are the changes we saw across a particular season. You've done really well, or you've come back from the season and I see these numbers are down and these are the things we're going to attack for the next, block of training. So it depends on the report that we're seeing. So this is for sure an individual one. And some of the squad comparison reports, athletes don't need to see this stuff. I don't think. Maybe as part of your knowledge share in general conversation, you could, mention, I work with this particular group and I know on average they're stronger than your group. Is that a problem? Do you think we need to bump up your numbers? But I don't think this report, needs to be shared with athletes, but certainly with coaches and the multi-sport sports science team for sure. And the squad comparison, the leaderboard that I showed before, I think that one can go out. That you just do it at the start of a season. In winter sports context, everyone comes back from European season, 2 or 3 months on the road. We test them then. They've got a couple of weeks off of rest and recovery, although not now, as we're heading into an Olympic preparation for 2026, is it? And then so when we all come together, we've got a national training centre in Jindabyne, which is in New South Wales. Everyone generally tests at that moment. And so I think it would be really cool to have this dashboard, setting on a TV somewhere or print it out and hand it out or on iPads and say, hey, this is the current ranking for your max strength tests. You're ranked 5th. We're going to attack this. Do you think you can make an improvement and jump up into the top 3? I just think that the level of motivation that will come out of that will be massive. So yeah, I think it's really context dependent. And some of these reports may go higher than that as well. I don't really have any of that would go, boardroom type level, but certainly, there could be. But how much the boardroom just wants to know if wins and losses rather than changes in a max chin up, for example. So, but for sure, you could do something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. Really interesting. And I think knowing your dashboards and reports so well, and also knowing your athletes and knowing the coaches is so important. So specific coaches they might like information just in a table format. They might like a beautiful dashboard. They might just like a conversation about the key takeaways from the data. So yeah, it's very specific as you say. Final thing.
I don't know if we've got time for any other dashboards, but to continue this part of the conversation, just yesterday, and I'm going to open up another dashboard here that I've got with the athletics group.
Great. Yeah.
Let me get to it. Sorry to hijack
That's great.
the chat here. So in this example, this is a recent dashboard that I've created for our athletics group, track and field athletes, sprinters, couple hurdlers, triple jump, long jump. And I was on the gym floor yesterday. And this is just some data that we look at with GymAware. And we do GymAware on a particular exercise, a trap bar jump. Sometimes they're like counter movement jumps, 3 reps in a row. Sometimes it's just a single repetition, for example. But this particular athlete, even though we've got GymAware in front of us, which aids in motivation by about 8%, getting that feedback, she had no context of whether her current score was any good or if she'd been improving across time. And so I just pulled out my laptop in that situation. And this was literally just yesterday, and just showed her that, look at your progression in peak speeds here from, start of the year to current. And she's hitting, technically PB numbers from the current training week. She's in her final prep phase. We have our nationals in 2.5 weeks' time. So she's in quite good condition. And for her to see that immediately and say, and reflect and be like, sometimes you don't know where you're at on a particular day. And it's important to see where you've come from as well. So that was just a really powerful moment for me with this particular athlete that I'm only just started working with, for her to see that.
Yeah, just to visualize that, it can tell such a story and have such a bigger impact just to see that chart there, rather than you explaining and trying to get the point across and all. Yeah, okay, that's fascinating. That's really cool. So lastly then, other than learning or jumping on the Sport Horizon Power BI for S&C coaches. Uh, what was, I suppose, what would your tips be about getting into Power BI and being able to analyze and report data effectively and efficiently? And also, I think your own personal story is quite interesting about, your what you learned in Aspire from some other practitioners and everything. I think it's quite telling.
Well, for sure, I think that if you've got the opportunity to be working with people closely that are already doing, things like this, and whether it's Power BI or Tableau or, learning R coding, as I may have mentioned, that I'm going to, take that next step and maybe delve into a bit of coding myself. You've got the influence from your peers. And I like upskilling some of my workmates as well. And I'm actually going to put together some screen shares about how to, open Power BI and store data and clean our data sets as well for our particular group at NSWIS. So I really enjoy doing that. In terms of, other influences, LinkedIn is probably the biggest one for me. And that's where I see you most active as well. And you do a lot of sharing of other people's dashboards. And to be honest, I haven't done a lot of the stuff that's readily available on YouTube. I know there's a lot of free courses, for example. Some of those courses are probably not for sports scientists or S&C coaches. A lot of them are more business, marketing, management style. And of course, you will learn Power BI skills doing those courses. But I think it's better to get context by doing a course like Sport Horizon. So quick plug there. But to be honest, I really like when you reshare other people's dashboards. And I think that for me gives a lot of inspiration. Oh, they've put this, they're looking at the same counter movement jump as I am, but they're looking at it in this particular way across time. I personally get a lot out of that and comparing my reports to theirs. So I don't follow anyone else in particular, but yeah, of course, there's a couple, again, mostly on LinkedIn. I think that's where a lot of people are posting these days.
Okay, yeah, before you go on, that's really interesting actually for me because sometimes like I share my own stuff or from Sport Rising courses, and then the odd time I'll reshare or repost or quote repost, somebody who has either done our courses already and they want to show some dashboards, but also just people that I come across, that's quite, and I'm the same. It's like, oh, that's quite nice. I like what they've done with that. And okay, so that's interesting to keep sharing
Yeah,
for people.
yeah, I think it's good to keep sharing. And honestly, I got a lot of hits off you resharing that dashboard. Kept getting those notifications come up. Oh, you've got so and so many views. I'm like, what is going on? I've not posted anything. So yeah, it was. I think it's really good. So yeah, keep that one up.
Yeah, okay, brilliant. Okay, well, thank you very much for coming on, Chris. I appreciate it. It's nighttime in Australia now and morning time in London, so I appreciate you taking the time. Like this is a brilliant exhibition of where your Power BI skills and data analysis and reporting has gone. And obviously, before you were doing the Sport Horizon, you had really high level skills anyway. But it's fascinating to see the dashboards and the reports that you've created. And I like how you've learned from like courses, other practitioners, people posting stuff on LinkedIn. And, as you mentioned, you were there with Kenny and Jack and some others at Aspire Academy, and you get a chance to really learn from them. But I think that it's a fascinating topic about just that effective use of data and the benefits of the likes of Power BI and Tableau and other solutions as well. That we're gathering all this data, but it's a great chance to just bring it all together to clean it properly, which, as you mentioned, is so important. Yeah, and then analyze it. But of course, we all love the reporting and visualization of the data at the end. So yeah, I think it's a fascinating topic.
I mean, it's good. It's one that I'm certainly interested in and how to, what's best practice for S&C coaches to be able to collect this information on the gym floor, have it get up to the cloud and onto our desktops for reporting to coaches in a conversation you need to have in the next couple hours. I think the better we can improve that time efficiency, the better. So it's certainly a skill that I think young practitioners should start to develop if they haven't already, and obviously those who are already in the industry as well.
Yeah. Great. If you have time, we'll be dragging you in to help us with the Power BI for S&C Coaches Level 2. That would be the next stage, and getting some of those great ideas and skills that you have. So yeah, that'd be great. Okay, thank you everybody for watching and for listening. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. So every week we put out tips and tricks across Power BI and Tableau mostly, but also some Excel, ChatGPT, and other solutions and things that pop up in the data analysis world. And also go over to our website, sporthorizon.co.uk, where we have all our online CPD courses, but also one-to-one coaching, club consultation, and other exciting services for clubs as well that we're launching API direct integration with our reports and dashboards. So check out that as well. And reach out to me, either Ciaran Deely on LinkedIn or Sport Horizon on LinkedIn, or send us an email, info@sporthorizon.co.uk. And just before finishing, Chris, if anybody wants to reach out to you, do you prefer LinkedIn or an email, or how would you like it?
I mean, certainly, I'm not sure if you got show notes. We can drop all my contact details in there, but I used to be pretty proficient on Twitter, or X now. I don't really use that very much, but Instagram, Chris Brandner or Chris.Bradner, one of those variations for sure. And email as well, which is chris.bradner@nswis.com.au. Yeah, happy to take questions. And I am on LinkedIn as well. Same name, obviously. So just look me up.
Okay, great. Yeah, so it'll all be down in the show notes, and reach out to Chris there. And I think you'll have a fascinating conversation with Chris about this whole area. Okay, we leave it at that for now. I'm looking forward to the next webinar series, and we'll see everybody then. But for now, thank you very much, Chris, and thank you for everybody for watching.
Thanks for having me.